And now a Fox Biz first, Richard Scrushy speaks out of the slammer, but not at all shy about slamming what he calls the bogus charges that kept him in prison for 70 months and a judge's orders he not head up any public companies, maybe for the rest of his life. Just the latest twist in the life of one Richard Scrushy that, let's just say, has had many turns. If there is anyone who knows the healthcare system's ins and outs better than Richard Scrushy, even his critics say they would be hard-pressed to find one. Yet for now, the former HealthSouth CEO will be forced to watch from the sidelines than leading any healthcare reform line. At least any public healthcare reform line. That's because a federal judge in Alabama has ruled that Scrushy is unfit to lead any public company, and that his stewardship of HealthSouth proves it. Scrushy supporters disagree. They say he's already done his time, 70 months in prison for allegedly trying to buy his way onto Alabama's state hospital board, courtesy of campaign contribution to the state's governor. Scrushy has always insisted that was not a bribe, and so too has former Governor Don Siegelman on this very show. Last time I checked, I'm not taking sides here, but there was no money in your pocket. You seem to get nothing from this. I mean, that no one caught you with a briefcase stuffed with $100 bills.
We are being sent to prison for something, one, that didn't happen. Nobody wants to go to prison, but certainly nobody wants to go to prison for something they didn't do.
Nevertheless, both men ended up in jail for crimes that, in Scrushy's case, were summarily dismissed by a jury back in 2005. A total of 36 counts in all, involving everything from insider trading to accounting fraud. The fact that government prosecutors refused to give up says something about how prized a target Scrushy really was. A man who had turned HealthSouth into a $4.3 billion behemoth, treating more than 100,000 patients a day. Throughout, HealthSouth was hailed for being able to do so cheaper than the government and better than the government. Ultimately, Scrushy supporters say that's why he was targeted by the government. That and his lavish lifestyle that, as Dennis Kozlowski of Tyco fame would discover as well, doesn't help your case as you're making your case. The irony is that despite doing his time, perhaps one of this country's foremost healthcare experts can do little more than bide his time, offering some ideas, but little more, on the signature medical legislation of the century. And now, in his first interview, and for all of that, the former HealthSouth CEO, Richard Scrushy, with me now. Richard, very good to have you. Thanks for coming.
Good to be here, Neil.
What a saga. Before we get into the whole healthcare mess right now, it's a real interesting legal saga. You bitter?
Not really. You know, life goes on. I've got a family and I've got, future. You just have to put things behind you. I can't just keep drinking the poison. You've got to move forward. I'm an optimist, Neil, and the glass is always half full with me, and I believe the future is bright, and I'm always trying to find the good in everything that I do. So no, I'm really not bitter. It's behind me, and I'm moving on. All right, you did your time, whether people say you deserved that prison sentence or not. You can argue punishment meted out, punishment taken, punishment absorbed, but it sounds like you're still being punished when a judge refuses to allow you to serve on a public company, or I guess by extension even weigh in on what is the biggest government undertaking since the New Deal, this healthcare law. Well, I think that part of the reason the judge ruled that is simply we didn't do a good job from a legal standpoint filing our motion. The judge had said that I could come back in 5 years and have that bar, the SEC bar, removed, and that's what we did, and apparently we did not prove all the points that she wanted us to prove. So, we'll take some of the blame on that, and I think she's a good judge, and I really think that we had done the things she wanted us to do. So I'm not, I'm not bitter about that as well. And I don't know that I would ever serve on the board of a public company or even want to be the CEO of a public company again. But I do want to be involved in building companies and helping companies and advising companies. And right now is really a great time, back in 1982, 1983, when the healthcare laws changed. We went from a cost-based reimbursement system to a diagnostic-related grouped program. It cut about a third of all the profits out of the ancillaries in hospitals, and it created an opportunity to build a new healthcare model that was more efficient to move patients through the system, get them off the healthcare dollar. And that's the grounds that we built and the foundation we built Health South on. Right now, today, I see a similar change. I see anytime you have change, you open doors and new opportunities. And I think all the real entrepreneurs in the healthcare business are chomping at the bit now to try and make lemonade out of this situation. I believe that there are a lot of them that will, and just through my daily phone calls, I see so many opportunities. So,
well, you mean that you still see them?
positive.
Because a lot of people look at the healthcare law and say that it's closing out private initiatives, and it's closing out the role of private companies like Health South in its day, and that it's going quite the opposite way.
Well, I think that your point as well, and there are some companies that are going to be hurt. Anytime you change things, there are going to be people who have pain, and there are going to be people who have gain.
Well, what do you think of the launch of this thing, then, Richard? What do you think of the launch of it?
Well,
is it sloppy? Is Sebelius? A lot of people want her head. What do you think?
Well, I think that you can't deny the fact that everyone is disappointed in that, but you know, I have built and been involved in building a lot of digital programs, websites, and been involved in a lot of different things that are similar to. I mean, I can understand this failing like it did, and you know, a lot of your technology folks do oversell themselves and what they can do and they can't do. This shouldn't have happened. I truly don't believe that you can blame the president on this. I do believe that somebody down the line, I know if I'd hired a group like this to do that and they failed, that I'd hope that I wouldn't be blamed for it. But the bottom line is, it's not right. It's a disaster. It's got to be fixed.
Richard, when you were running Health South,
that can be fixed.
Yeah, but when you were running Health South, I mean, say what people have said since. I mean, the fact of the matter is, you had an arsenal of high tech and IT folks who were second to none, marshaling something that had, you know, ultimately was shepherding tens of thousands of Americans through its system.
Right.
So even from its earliest launch to its, you know, incarnations along the way, doctors were involved, IT folks were involved. We're now learning with this one, very few doctors were involved, and we can tell, at least from the launch, very few good IT guys were involved. That is not encouraging me. Should I be?
No, and you're right. Because we were a company, we were not tied to any, you know, government bidding situations, and we were not influenced by any political situations. We were able to hire the best people, the most talented people, and build the best systems that we could build. And I think that I think everyone is disappointed, and there's no doubt about it that this shouldn't have happened. But there are other things that I think we have to look at. Once they get the IT portion of it fixed, you know, there are other things we've got to look at. We've got to look at the deductibles. We've got to make sure that doctors are not opting out of this program. You don't want to lose your favorite doctor, you know, your primary care physician, because he doesn't want to be in the program.
Richard, they are. And by the droves. I mean, and that's why people are getting so ticked off, because they're not only are they realizing that they're losing their coverage, they're losing their doctors, but if they want either or both back, they're going to have to pay through the nose to get them back.
Well, several things. Number one, the premiums cannot go up. People are paying enough as it is. Premiums have got, and then we got the deductible problem. We've got to make sure that there's not too big of a gap there, and that people are not devastated with catastrophic illnesses and accidents and whatnot. So that you've got that, you've got the doctor issues, and you've got people being thrown out of their programs, out of their insurance programs. Those things have got to stop. I think the leadership knows that, and I think that they've got to do something about it. But let's flip the coin. What are the opportunities? What does all that create? It creates look, doctors need help. I'm working with a company, for example, and have been in discussions with them about creating a better system for doctors where they can actually increase doctors' profitability by 30 to 40%, increase the flow of patients, increase their business systems and whatnot. I've talked to other companies that can help providers where they can work with existing hospitals, existing surgery centers, imaging centers, and help bring more business into them and create efficiencies in their situations, as well as talking with companies that can help businesses, that can go in and create systems where they can help businesses reduce their healthcare costs, reduce the actual cost of procedures and the processing of their people through the healthcare delivery systems and get them off healthcare dollars. You see a lot of opportunity to make this work. If you don't mind, Rick, I could switch gears a little bit and argue back to something I thought of knowing you would join us today, and what's going on today with the government targeting a lot of these investment banks and a lot of their CEOs.
they seem, and it could be just me, Richard, to be looking for their proverbial head on a stick. I had argued back when you were targeted along the same eras we had the Dennis Kozlowski and the Bernie Evers, that they wanted some prominent big names. Whether justified or no, they needed those heads on a stick. You were one of them. And I'm wondering now whether it's the bank's turn, and that's what's happening now. What do you think?
Well, it may be. I can tell you this, that, you know, and I'm sure you're talking specifically about Jamie Dimon. Let me say this. Back when Jamie was at Smith Barney, Solomon Smith Barney, I met him. I worked with people that knew him. I worked with people that worked under him. And they had the utmost respect for his abilities, his leadership, his skills. He did a lot of great things when he was there. I've watched his career. I do know that once once the prosecutors get into your business and they begin to peel back layers, they're going to, they find things. And, no one's perfect. You take companies that have tens of thousands of employees, hundred thousands of employees, nobody's perfect.
And, but Richard, they're paying billions and billions and billions in fines and potentially record fines of that, and the government gets all scot-free.
Yes.
Now, you could make an argument that the banks deserve this, but certainly all of this is a result of a government that all but encouraged this. Is that fair?
Well, I have to be careful what I say. I've been a target of the government. I don't want to rile up a bunch of prosecutors to find something wrong with something else. And I've moved on. I hate to see the government attacking anybody. I have stood in courtrooms where prosecutors absolutely said things that were not true at all, and none of them were held accountable for their actions and for the things that they said. I think our system is broken. When you have plaintiff attorneys and you have prosecutors that can stand in a courtroom in front of a federal judge or a state judge and just say anything they want to and not be held accountable for the lies and the things they say. I mean, we're living in a country right now that people really need to wake up and take a real hard look at our justice system and what's going on. I feel like I was mistreated. I certainly was not guilty of any crime. I did time in prison that I should have never done. You got a governor sitting in prison right now, 5 years in prison. The man never did anything wrong. He may have done some things wrong in his life, but he certainly did not commit this crime. And I can tell you that there are other people in prison that are innocent.
Well, what advice would you give then, Richard,
there.
if you feel you were wrong and the governor is wrong? I mean, Dennis Kozlowski, when I talked to him in a prison cell some years back, he admitted that maybe his lavish lifestyle made him a target. Now, he didn't know anything about the $10,000 umbrella stand and the $50,000 bath curtain, whatever it was. He said his wife was behind those purchases. But nevertheless, he said that kind of got people's attention. And not that it was through ill-gotten gains, as he insisted it never was, but that if you lead the lavish lifestyle, and you did, you become more of a target. Do you think that's right?
Well, I don't think it's right. I think that's the American way. I don't know that my lifestyle even compared with most of the people out there. As you look at CEOs of really big companies, yeah, I had a lake house and I had a farm and and I had a boat and an airplane. But
did you ever have a party in Sardinia? Did you ever do anything like that?
Maybe it's lavish. Okay. Look, hey, let me tell you this. He built a $40 billion company, okay, from scratch. We built a multi-billion-dollar company from scratch. It was worth billions of dollars, okay? I mean, I hope that in this country today, if you can build a billion-dollar company, that you can go out and spend some money that you make for doing it. And if you hire 50, 60, 70, 80,000 people and you create all those jobs and pay $1 billion payrolls, that somebody might say, it's okay for you to spend $10 million on whatever you want. And so I really think that is used, it's used in courtrooms to make people look bad. And a lot of times they look at the payroll. I was paying $1 billion payroll.
I know. All that is true. Do you think, though, that rich people are frowned upon, that they're targets now, and that we don't like rich people? In fact, we now feel that anyone who's successful, has a lot of money, has gotten it through ill-gotten gains.
Well, I think so. I think that's wrong. I think that look, I'm speaking on college campuses. I ask young people to raise their hand if they want to be the highest paid CEO in America. And they raise their hands. And I showed them a newspaper article with the top 10 highest paid CEOs. And I said, here's a guy making $100 million a year. Raise your hand if you want to make $100 million a year. Well, most of them raise their hand. Every now and then there will be some that don't. I ask them, why don't you? You know what they say? I don't want the responsibility. I don't want the liability. I don't want the risk. I don't want to be attacked by the government. That's what they say. I mean, just ask students in classrooms all over America. They'll tell you these things. That's what they're telling me every day.
Finally, Richard,
I think...
But to that point, I wish we had more time.
It's what it is.
After all you've been through, whether justified or not, Are you angry? Are you angry at this government, at this country? Are you bitter?
Well, no, I'm not, because I'm an optimist. I believe that things can be better. I believe in a better future for this country and for every child, for my children. And, you know, you go back to the attack from the plaintiff attorneys and what they've done. Hey, I believe that things are going to be okay for me, and I trust and believe that the shareholders, the board of directors of the company that I founded will treat me fair in the end, and that they will do the right things. I'm an optimist. I believe in the best for people. I believe in this country. I believe in our leadership, and I believe at the end of the day we're going to build a better country and a better healthcare system, and I believe that's coming, and I think we have to continue to fight for that.
Richard Scrushy, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Right after this.